Can your student loan debt be discharged through bankruptcy? Hi, I'm attorney Leroy Roberson, and I wanted to talk about this topic because a lot of people have student loan debt. And, most people assume that you can't discharge student loans through bankruptcy. And to be honest, in most situations, that is true, but it's not an absolute. So I wanted to make a video and talk about situations where you may have a chance at having your student loans discharged through bankruptcy. So the first thing that you need to consider is that when you are trying to get student loans discharged through bankruptcy, whether you're doing a Chapter 7 or a 13, you need to file what's called an adversary proceeding. And what this is, it's pretty much a litigation case through the bankruptcy courts. So you can't get your discharge through normal means like other debt that you have. You have to first file this adversary proceeding. Once that's done, it goes through, and depending on, how strenuous it is, it can last various amounts of time. But what the court has to determine is whether or not discharging that debt will cause an undue burden on yourself and on your dependents. So that's the question that the court's going to have to answer. And in order to answer this question, because there is no set definition in the bankruptcy code on what undue hardship is, but courts have had a bunch of different tests that they've put in, and there's two main tests that they do. And I'm in California, and many, many other states use what's called the Bruner test. And this is a three-pronged test that the courts will use to determine what undue hardship is. And I'm going to run through those prongs, and I'm going to read them to you because I want to make sure that I get it right word for word for what each prong is. Now, the first prong is going to deal with poverty. And what it says about poverty is that the debtor cannot maintain, based on current income and expenses, a minimal standard of living for themselves and their dependents if they're forced to repay the student loans. So that's the first prong. The second prong deals with persistence. And what that says is additional circumstances exist indicating that the hardship is likely to persist for a significant portion of the repayment period of the student loans. And that could be anything from maybe you're disabled, you have a permanent disability, it's not going to get any better, your income is going to be where it's going to be. That is one example of the persistence prong that could, satisfy that prong. There could be other situations, but I just wanted to kind of throw out one so you may have a better understanding. The third prong is going to be good faith. And what that says is that you've made a good faith attempt or effort to repay on the loan. So those are the three prongs that the court's going to look at to determine whether or not there's an undue hardship that exists. Some other courts look at what's called the totality of the circumstances test, and it's kind of what it sounds like. They're going to look at various different factors that you have going on and determine whether or not, through looking at all those factors, their undue hardship exists to allow the discharge of your student loans. So those are the two main areas that I wanted to focus on for what they look at for undue hardship. Depending on where you live, you can look into that, see what they look at. But the main thing is, even though there's a lot more going on to get student loan debt discharged, if you feel that you may qualify or have more questions and want to talk about this in more depth, definitely let's do it, because even though there's more work that goes into getting student loan debt discharged, it doesn't mean it's impossible to do. It does happen, and your circumstances may qualify, and it may be worth it to go down that road to get your student loan debt discharged. So as always, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me and we can talk about it. If not, have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks, guys.